Hey Google, what's the date?
It's Sunday, October 20th, 2024.
And I'm Jeremy Wright. I just happen to have two tanks that are next to each other that had a similar problem. And this has been going on for a while, but it's pH creeping upward. And some of you may be able to look at this tank, and I will tell you a few things. First off, KH is rather low. TDS and GH are rather low right now because I did like a massive water change about a week ago and I didn't really add a lot of minerals back in. Similarly, this tank, actually we just did a test. This has been sitting a little bit, but that's these two lines. The darker purple, this gets actually the more purple, not darker. And the more green this gets, it's GH and KH respectively. And I think one of these are nitrites, which are like none. TDS in this tank, let's talk about that. That was, I actually hit hold on the meter. And I hit hold and made it unhold. It was at like 170, which is actually, let me make sure it wasn't at 127. 137, 137. Okay, I was totally wrong. It wasn't 170, it was 137. And temp 24 degrees centigrade right now. This is one of my few heated tanks. This is tank D. It's a 20 gallon tall dirt under sand. Yeah, that is sand as well, even though it doesn't look like it. This is just a very fine sand. Not the best aquarium substrate by any means. That is marine sand, which is basically going to be crushed coral, and otherwise it's just a really simple planted tank. This one was just absolutely full of guppy grass and floaters until maybe 3 weeks ago. I did kind of a big change up in it, and I've been watching it a little more carefully than I watch my other tanks because it was majorly changed. Now, why did I remove all the guppy grass? It was going to be kind of a guppy breeding tank, and it's got some mollies in here. It's got one goldie. I don't know if that's a feeder goldfish or what. We're going to let it grow out and find out. It was rehomed to me several weeks ago, but this little tank's normally just jamming along. I can ignore it. It's fine. But the pH has crept up, as I was mentioning. Excuse me. So, big water change a few weeks ago. Everything was fine. pH was like in the 7.3 or 4 range, just at a guess. It was where I would set a planted guppy tank, right? After a big water change. I was kind of shocked to see the TDS as high as it is. I was kind of thinking it would be a little lower, but generally when we see pH go up, it's kind of in association with an increase in total dissolved solids, an increase in GH, KH, stuff in the water, right? Stuff in the water. There's another thing that can kind of drive that. Oxygenation of the water by tons of plants. And I've noticed for years that tanks that get like jungly overgrown, this one needs a little bit of a refill, doesn't it? But it also needs tons of anacharis, guppy grass, hornwort just removed from the tank. It's getting shady down here. When it gets shady, like, let me back up so you can really see. Dark in the bottom, right? That's not cool, because I want some of these interesting grasses. Like, I think that one probably came from John Oliver's place. But it just hasn't taken over because it's shady in the bottom of this tank all the time. Tons of plant matter, and that's just something that I've shown people for a while now. These tanks don't get fertilizer, and they grow the crap out of plants. Why is that? Because of like aquaponic theory. Fish food is fertilizer. I mean, come on, it's doing its thing. So they're turning fish food into plant fertilizer, plant fertilizer is being turned into plant matter, and boom, cycle is infinite as long as I keep it going, right? That's a cute little angel. So I actually rehomed this angel pretty recently too, but he or she, can't tell yet, doesn't have enough room to swim. So the problem with this tank, other than just the visual, it's a jungly, overgrown tank. It needs like a pound or two of plant matter removed from it, and it'll be a lot more visually appealing. It'll be easier for the fish to swim through. Now the baby guppies love it. The angel and some of the big gups, like, look at this. They're literally having a hard time swimming around this stuff. They need some help, right? So aside from that, this tank, though it doesn't have really high TDS, GH, or KH, there's not a lot of stuff in this water. I think there's less stuff in this water than there is in the water that I just showed you with the 137 ppm. Let's find out, though. Let's, why just listen to me? I'm just the guy making the claims. Let's see. It's reading like in the 60s. 60, I think that's 68. And let's get a read on the temp. And yeah, so about 68 TDS, 68 parts per million of total dissolved solids, and 76.4 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, let's get a read on the pH. This is going to be like 10. And it was just like within the last couple of weeks had a massive water change. It wasn't up high like that. I haven't added any marine salts. I haven't added any Epsom salts or baking soda. I was trying to pull this number down, and it did come down like into the 7s. Now I did that kind of slowly because when you have a higher pH tank, you don't want the pH to suddenly plummet doing a massive water change. You might kill all your plants, even fish, doing that. Why? Because osmosis, like cells are going to try and, so whatever. It's like, well, actually we didn't let it stabilize. I actually want to know what this is. It's going down a little bit. That's good. It is good. Why are we so out of focus? That's terrible. There we go. No, it's going up. I just wiggled it. You can wiggle these things and it will artificially drive the pH reading down. So yeah, I did that. So let's talk about why this tank has a higher pH. I think it's directly related to the overabundance of plant matter. Look down in here. Low TDS and bubbles. You have to have surfaction. And that can be created by overfeeding, protein stuff, but you can look at the top of this tank and note, this is an unfiltered tank. It doesn't have a lot of water flow. It does have a sponge filter and an air filter, but it doesn't have like anything breaking the water surface other than this stuff. But it's got no surface scuzz on it, okay? But it's got bubbles. It's kind of weird. Usually you see bubbles in like poorly maintained tanks that have scuzz on the top. Higher pH, that's what's up. That's why that's going on. And I am hypothesizing and trying to determine a good test for the issue that I've been seeing with this tank in specific, but also more recently just happened to be in the tank right beside it. And I did something about that, but I'm shocked that the pH is still kind of high. So I will be coming through and removing just tons and tons and tons of plant matter from this tank, trying to pretty it up, maybe even, I mean, not like rescape it. It's been a steady, solid, established environment for a while. What is that? It's just a weird Anacharis. But I want the grasses and things to really thrive in this tank, and they can't right now because it's just too shaded. Too much stuff growing. The other thing is, I think that's tied to the pH problem. So I'm going to remove a ton of that. And I think you can, it's really like a balance of the plant to animal biomass. And you can't really tell from looking in here right now, but I feed this tank like way more than my others because it has like, I don't know, 150 guppies in it maybe. They're just all over. And granted, we can't see the ones in the back right now. We're seeing the ones that are in the front, and probably more of them are in the front, but there are lots of gups. But even with that many in there, they don't even kind of come close to balancing that plant biomass, right? Like not even kind of come close. And I think it's about a 12-to-1 ratio of mass, of just an average plant. So there's an order of magnitude, basically, difference between how much plant mass you need versus how much animal mass you need to balance a planted aquarium. And I mean, we're overshooting that by a good little bit. If we got all those guppies together, they're going to be like maybe some ounces, but not pounds. And if we got all these plants together, just what we're going to remove is probably going to be in the 1.5 pound range. That's pretty normal for this tank. Like every month or two, I'm like, okay, I can't stand it anymore. I pull like a bunch out. And I often weigh it because I send it to people who own like local fish stores, right? And who else needs like a pound of freaking aquarium plants? Like nobody, but not me even. I mean, I've got this stuff growing well, but yeah, this is basically going to be Anacharis, guppy grass, probably some hornwort. This tank used to have some algae bloom problems. I took off one of these lamps. It's still got a fluorescent that kicks on kind of in the evening, but I reduced the lighting by like not quite half. And I said there wasn't any surface scuzz. There's just a little bitty bit right there. So who knows? Maybe I'll do a surface skim, and I'm just gonna have to do another water change in here along with removing the plants. But for now, that's kind of an update on tank A and tank D. This one evolved quite a bit. It looks a lot better after having all it looked the same as that a few weeks ago. Now I've transferred some plants around. The crypts, they were growing nicely already in here. Some of the other small stuff, one of the Ludwigias, I think the one in the front I've recently added. Maybe the little Anubias I added. I think there was another crypt that I added somewhere in here. And, oh, that Java Fern probably got added recently. Otherwise, I've just been picking algae out of this tank, which is kind of a byproduct of it not having floaters anymore. So there's a lot more light penetrating down through the tank. And any algae that was growing in like this massive hornwort and guppy grass, I've had to pick it out. Now, I'll just continue manually picking it out because I don't use algicides around here. I don't think they're necessary. I don't like using medication. I don't like poisoning my tanks. That's basically it. I don't like poisoning my tanks. So if it comes from the like petrochemical industry, I generally think it doesn't belong in my garden and it doesn't belong in my aquariums. And I've just kind of become that way over time. I think there are organic, natural ways of caring for these things and allowing them to do their thing. Fertilizers, I don't use fertilizers. I just let plants grow like crazy. Now, I'll back up from time